So we will get started shortly, I know.
Let's start right now.
All right. I just want to welcome everybody to our meeting, our Zoom meeting. These are unusual meetings for our Rotary 4, the fourth oldest Rotary club in existence right now. And we are going through an incredible change of events through our, I should say, our future vision task force. One of the things that I really want to start off with, though, before we even get started, is to recognize that last Friday, Governor Evans, Dan Evans, who was an honorary member along with his wife Nancy, passed away at the age of 98. Almost, he would have been on October 16th, he would have been 99 years old. We want to honor him. He's a very special person. We will have a memory in the future that will be much more involved than what I'm talking about, but realize that he was our first three-term governor. After that, he served in the US Senate and learned very quickly that it was much better to be a governor than a senator because you rule as a governor as opposed to being one of 100 people in the Senate. And after he retired from the Senate, he became the president of Evergreen College in Olympia, and a member of the Board of Regents of the University of Washington. And we have honored him and his wife as part of the Evans School, one of our top public affairs schools at the University of Washington. And I know you're there, Neil, online, and we're very close to the governor. I know that I remember as a child, Dan Evans in the state House of Representatives represented us in the 43rd district where I live, and for a number of years, and became a close friend of my father's and of mine. A wonderful person, someone that we really want to remember. There was a great article in the New York Times on him also. So let's just be silent.
Oops.
Did we freeze?
I think we were doing a moment of silence, but I think he did freeze. Okay, I think that was our moment of silence. John, are you there? Okay, I think we've lost John, so I will go ahead with this, and we are going to go ahead and welcome Barton DeLacy and Paul Sy with the Business Mentors announcement.
That was great, Mary. Barton, you are muted.
I'm all right.
There you go.
Okay, thanks, Jaime. I'm not sure if Paul's on, but I want to encourage everyone. Many of you have been a mentor in the past. This is the time of year to kind of sign up. Real briefly, the program involves not only working with a small business, but also with a small team of University of Washington students in the Foster School. This year, and maybe Mary can share a screen in a minute. She can maybe put up first the list of companies that the school will be advising. Well, okay, this first slide simply has the key dates. We really don't do any work until the winter quarter, beginning in January, but there is a kickoff meeting Wednesday the 6th on the campus. That'll probably be the conflict. Well, it won't exactly conflict if you can drive fast, get back downtown for Rotary, but it is what it is. It's a good time to meet the other mentors. I know Neil's in the meeting here, and Neil McReynolds, of course, was key in founding the mentor relationship with UW well over 30 years ago. But what's interesting today is that Rotarians are only about a third of the mentors. Many of the mentors are alums of the program, and there are other business people who have gotten involved. So it's actually a kind of a good opportunity to recruit people to Rotary if you're privileged to work with them on a team. Normally, you'll be paired with at least one other, if not two other mentors. And then during the year, the school in January, we normally you try to meet on Zoom with your student team. Fridays typically is what the experience has been, and then they have towards the end of the term, we'll have Rotary Day out on the campus. We did this last year with the first time that Rotarians went to UW rather than having them come downtown, and that went very well. And again, it's just a wonderful opportunity to not only showcase Rotary, but to meet the students and faculty and staff at the UW. It's just a wonderful interactive activity, and it's I'm a duck, not a husky, but it's a beautiful campus, and so it's great to participate out there. And then at the end of during the spring term, there's a little bit of contact with the business owner that the mentors are working with, and then it culminates at the end of May. There's a program on campus where the students make a presentation to the owner and the ownership of the company, and often there's some follow-on contact with the students. It's just a wonderful multi-generational activity, and again, the key thing this year is just to be thinking about it, and then to contact Paul Sire, myself. We'll get you the links to sign up. And if you have colleagues that may wish to participate, we'd love to have them as well. So if there are any questions, please let me know, or contact Paul. I think we'll both be at the meeting on the 2nd, and again, we'll do a follow-up announcement, I believe, on the 16th. Any questions?
No, thank you. That was amazing. I will advocate that. I've been part of Business Mentors for a few years in a row, and it's powerful from the business owner perspective, from the student perspective. It's actually really impacts the community in a vibrant way, and I always come away learning from something, which is kind of awesome. As that is being told, and we're waiting on President John to come back. Go ahead, Mary.
He's back.
There you go. Take it away.
Well,
Thanks, Jaime. Paul, do you have anything to say? I just saw you on there.
Oh, hi. Sorry, joined just a minute late, but I posted a link to sign up on the group chat. So please check that and click that to sign up. I also put the list of businesses in the group chat, so please take a look.
Right. And it really doesn't matter what your business is. You wouldn't be in Rotary if you didn't have experiences that to be shared. And as Jaime said, these are really bright kids, and you do learn an awful lot when they do their financial analysis or whatever it is with the companies. So it's just a wonderful, rich activity.
That's Barton Lacey.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barton. John, are you with us?
We're here as well. Moved here from Chicago.
I'm not sure if he is. Moving on, I will go ahead and welcome our guest today. We have Emma Auburn from the Smithsonian and Dr. Richard Kurin are our guests today. Continuing to move on.
Wait, but before we do so, hold on. I just want to interrupt and say that the next one is Vicky for our short program.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Jaime. I'm sorry
good.
I'm on such a small screen. Lost my internet, so I'm using cellular data. Yay. Okay, it is my pleasure to introduce Chris Nakia, a highly accomplished professional with multifaceted career spanning over 30 years, blending his experience in technology with a deep commitment to charitable causes. Over the years, he has been instrumental in designing and overseeing software solutions for numerous Fortune 500 companies and small businesses. He is also the co-founder and chief technology officer of Our Mayberry. His leadership at Our Mayberry, founded in 2018, reflects his innovative vision of integrating commerce with philanthropy, helping businesses grow while supporting local causes and rebuilding communities. Chris's dedication to community impact is further demonstrated through his active involvement in Rotary International. He is a proud member of the Vashon Rotary Club, where he currently serves as the District 5030 Public Image Chair. He's editor of the District 5030 monthly newsletter and manager of the district's web presence. Additionally, he holds the position of Public Image Officer for the Alzheimer's Dementia Rotary Action Group. His commitment to service was recognized when he was honored at the District 5030 2023-2024 Rotarian of the Year. Please join me in welcoming Chris.
Hi, all. Vicki, thank you very much for that intro. I appreciate it. I'm here actually to introduce something that we're launching for Seattle 4, which is a new business directory. It's powered by the platform that my company created called Our Mayberry. And I just want to walk you through some of the benefits of that. Let me share my a little presentation with you. Can everybody see the screen okay? Yep. Okay, so this is a new business network that meant for Seattle 4 businesses to list their businesses so others can find them and learn about their business as a regular business directory. But it's got a bit of a twist. Using the Our Mayberry platform, there is a really nice giving component to it where businesses can support community, members can support those businesses while they're supporting the Seattle Rotary Foundation. And I want to start by just playing you a little video that sort of gives you a good feel for it.
Imagine if every dollar your business earned could spark change. Through the Seattle 4 Rotary Business Network, a portion of your sales and subscriptions funds your club's foundation, crucial projects, right here at home and across the globe. Clean water, scholarships, disaster relief, you name it. The Seattle 4 Rotary Business Network is where your business meets benevolence. By joining, you enrich your business, strengthen your community, and become part of a global network dedicated to making a difference. It's simple, sustainable, and significant. Unleash the power of Rotary today, because every transaction isn't just business. It's a beacon of hope. I need to change the window. Let's do it together.
That should give you a good feel of what the directory is about. Oop. I am not moving forward here. So something I want to tell you about the directory and about Our Mayberry as a platform, we embody the four-way test. My partner and I who founded this company, started the idea back in 2018, are both Rotarians and very, very involved Rotarians. And we wanted to create a platform where businesses could participate in supporting causes, but we wanted to, we were guided by the four-way test. So some things you'll learn about the platform is that, or the we call it the Community Benefits Business Network, is that we embody the four-way test. For one, is it true? Sorry, I'm having trouble with my slides here. It's fully transparent. So part of our model and embodying the four-way test is we don't touch the money. So everyone who participates, if you're a business that registers and wants to participate in the giving model, you connect your bank account. Funds go directly to you. The foundation's connected, funds go directly to them. So we just facilitate the transactions. Is it fair to all concerned? All parties have complete control. So I like to compare us to Amazon Smile, if you're familiar with Amazon Smile. The difference is the businesses that participate in our directory basically have complete control over how much they're going to contribute, whether it's through a product they might offer, or if somebody comes into the store and makes a purchase. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Yes, it will develop for the business loyal customers, passionate customers who want to support the foundation, have a way to do that. And the charities themselves or the foundations don't have to can focus on their mission. Excuse me. And it benefits everyone. Everybody wins in this model. So as I mentioned before, this is not just something that's an online offer. If you participate in the Giving Network, you're provided a number of tools. You can put offers up on the website. We have a way for businesses to offer a percentage of a transaction when somebody comes into the store and makes a purchase. Restaurants participated. Excuse me. And over the past 2 years, we've generated over $30 million in transactions and raised just about $2 million in charitable giving. I'm trying not to cough, so I'm sorry. That's why I keep. Excuse me, just one. I had a tickle in my throat there that just wouldn't go away. So we'd like to encourage everyone to participate as far as member businesses. Top 5 reasons: increase visibility and trust, attract new customers who value social impact, strengthen customer loyalty through cause-based partnerships, boost your brand reputation. And it's an affordable participation. One, if you want to list your business, it's free to list your business. If you want to participate in the giving model, there is a small fee for that. So there's a monthly $24.95 fee that businesses who do participate, get the tools and participate in the giving model can use, but it is a free listing. And I'm going to stop there right now and just go away and cough for just a minute.
Well, I hope you're feeling better, Chris.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just when I was speaking, I started getting this really bad tickle I was trying to control. But yeah, and hopefully I did a good enough job in conveying what the business network is, and how you can participate is by going to business.seattlerotary.org.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. I have to apologize. I don't know what, remember being in Hawaii, sometimes things don't work. And all of a sudden I discovered I was cut off from everybody, and I didn't even give anything about our future vision. But I will do that a little bit later in all of this. And I want to thank you, Chris, for your presentation. I want to also thank Barton and Paul and Vicky and Jaime for and Mary for taking over when all of a sudden I went offline without realizing I was offline. I just discovered I didn't even know where everybody was. and I was the one missing. So I am back, whether you like it or not, and it's now time for us to have our main program. And our main program involves the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., the wonderful museum complex of museums. And so I want to introduce Dr. Richard Kurin. He is the Smithsonian Distinguished Scholar and Ambassador at Large, and the first person so designated in the 171-year history of the institution. He started his Smithsonian career working on America's bicentennial celebration in 1976. And today, as a member of the Smithsonian senior leadership team, Dr. Kurin focuses on strategic direction, institutional partnerships, public representations, philanthropic support, and special initiatives. And we were doing some talking before we even started the meeting, and it's really great for us to have him here. Prior to his current role, Dr. Kurin served as the acting provost and undersecretary for museums and research from 2015, and from 2007, he was the undersecretary for history, art, and culture. He's a native of New York City, of the Bronx, and grew up in Queens, and attended the State University of New York at Buffalo. He earned a BA in anthropology and philosophy in 1972, same year as I graduated from the University of Washington. And he earned both his MA and PhD in anthropology from the University of Chicago. He's authored more than 100 scholarly articles and chapters and given hundreds of presentations at universities and museums around the US and across the globe. And his work is featured in scores of radio and television programs. And without further ado, Dr. Kurin, I turn the meeting over to you.
Well, thank you, John, and thank you all. I'm very familiar with the Rotary. I'm not a member, but my father-in-law was, and was always after me to join, and that he may be right after all. So thank you, and thank you for your service to the community and everything you do. So I want to move through this pretty quick. I'm a New Yorker, as John said, so I talk fast, but a picture's worth 1,000 words, and that gets me to cover more material. So I'm trying to advance the slides, and somehow it's not working. There, can someone help here?
Let's see. I'm going to call upon Mary to let us know what's going on.
Yeah. Mary? Let me come back and try it again.
Well, if nothing else, this is one thing that I know. Something's coming up.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so the Smithsonian is named after this guy, James Smithson, illegitimate child of aristocrats in Great Britain, never visited the United States, made a fortune, and wrote a will in 1826, leaving his fortune to the United States for the increase in diffusion of knowledge among men, a noble enlightenment task. Now, the money that came to the United States was $500,000. That was represented 1/60th of the US budget. If we did that today, that would be worth $100 billion. This was a bunch of money. And so Congress, as you can imagine, debated for many years about what to do with it. Finally, in 1846, decided to found the Smithsonian Institution. And the regents, the Board of Regents that the statute created to operate the Smithsonian, wanted to build a noble building on the Mall of the United States. It wasn't called the Mall at the time. It was Smithsonian Pleasure Gardens. It got the name, and they built this castle. How many people here have visited the Smithsonian one time in their life? I suspect many of you have. So this is what it looked like back at that time in the 1850s. And the Smithsonian got all these collections, you know, from the US Navy and the State Department, various government sources, and the Smithsonian became a repository of those collections. It had the great art that was painted that documented, in the period before photography, Native Americans. The Smithsonian began a publication service, Contributions to Knowledge. And one of the first things they did is look at the mound builders, because people in America at the time in the 1840s were wondering, who built these mounds? Who were these native people? The Smithsonian began an exchange service, printing scientific publications and literally sending them around the planet. The head of the Smithsonian at the time, a guy named Joseph Henry, was a physicist, worked on the telegraph, but he's the one that actually invented weather maps. It was kind of like a system of weather buddies around the United States. And of course, agriculture was our main enterprise, and weather maps were crucial in that industry. So that began actually in that castle. And during the Civil War, Henry advised Abraham Lincoln, and actually the observation balloons came as a result of Henry's advice to Lincoln to float over Northern Virginia, where the lines were between North and South. After the Civil War, when the US Congress was debating whether to acquire Alaska, your neighbor to the north there, nobody in Congress knew much about that place. But the Smithsonian had sent expeditions and young scientists to Alaska to document its resources and its people, and that convinced the Senate to approve that acquisition. We had a taxidermist at the Smithsonian in the 1880s. He didn't know what buffalo looked like living. He just had skin, so he went out west. He became a conservationist, got together with Teddy Roosevelt, but that brought buffalo to the mall, right back of the castle, right in Washington, D.C., and began the National Zoo and really the conservation movement. A lot of icons came to the Smithsonian early on. That's the Star-Spangled Banner that flew over Fort McHenry that night in September in 1814. Came to the Smithsonian, hung outside the Smithsonian Castle for a while, and then Smithsonian worked on conserving that precious national icon. When I went to the Smithsonian, 14 years old, 1964, you could walk up to these rockets that were outside the Smithsonian. We didn't have the Air and Space Museum yet. You could literally touch the rockets that were going into space. And of course, now the Smithsonian, as a modern institution, has really grown, and in so many ways. There are 21 museums, from the American Indian Museum in American history to the Cooper Hewitt National Design Museum in New York, to museums of African art, Asian art, and so on. We still provide tremendous experience. Close to 30 million visits a year. People come and see that Star-Spangled Banner that we have conserved. Some people like to come to First Lady's gowns. That continues to be very popular. At the Smithsonian, at the Portrait Gallery, you have the famous portraits of our presidents. And if you go to Air and Space, you can actually touch a rock from the moon. And you can see that prototype of the moon lander. And we've been doing much more 3D work, so you can actually go into the Apollo 11 spacecraft and understand what those astronauts did when they went to the moon and back. Of course, in our Natural History Museum, you have dinosaurs and our knowledge and displays of artifacts, collections and specimens documenting the world's ocean. In American Indian, you could see treaties, some signed by George Washington and other presidents, with different American tribes and communities that defined a lot of those relationships in the settlement of our country. If you're a stamp fan, the Smithsonian Postal Museum, National Postal Museum, has 6.4 million stamps, which just about everything, the rarest stamps in the world, including the British Guiana magenta. In Asian art, you could see Whistler's work and Asian art that was collected by Freer, the founder of that museum. And in the Sackler, see sculpture and contemporary exhibits, including ones enhanced by computer digitization. American art has those classic landscapes like Bierstadt, and newer landscapes of America like Nam June Paik's electronic superhighway. Burning Man, if you're a fan of that, we did a good exhibit on Burning Man a few years ago in our Renwick Gallery next to the White House. And at the Hirshhorn Contemporary Art, this is the art of Kusama, an amazingly popular display of a few years ago. Our Cooper Hewitt Museum deals with design and design issues. It may have started out as a kind of wallpaper and chair and decorative art museum, but now it's really working with how do we do design, innovative solutions to make life better around the planet, particularly for the other 90%. And we just closed out a show in the oldest of the museum buildings on futures, looking at innovation and inventions that will characterize our life for the next years. Our most recent museum opened was the African American Museum, opened in 2016. And that was really an amazing bipartisan effort. George Bush had signed the legislation, Obama had carried it forward, and was supported by people like Oprah Winfrey and thousands of citizens to raise the private money to match the federal money to open that museum. And now we have legislation. We're working on the opening of 2 new museums, a Smithsonian Women's Museum and a Latino museum. In our museums, we do active public programs. We have the Greensboro lunch counter from 1960, important in the civil rights movement. And we try to educate audiences that come to the museum about what it was like to sit down in order to stand up for one's rights. We do citizenship swearing-in ceremonies. We do programs on great Americans. We do a lot of children's programming so that kids get a visceral sense of what of American history, the issues, the themes, the questions, the doubts, the controversies, and so on. When we opened up the African American Museum, we took on some ad admission because it was right after Ferguson in Missouri. And so some of the surprising things we do is not just hosting school groups and tours to Washington. In that museum, we actually had programs with different police departments. So police departments could come to the museum, learn about African American history, and hopefully be more sensitive about dealing with community issues and policing. We do a lot of outdoor events on the National Mall of the United States, because that is our front lawn. And some mega events. I've arranged for the Dalai Lama to be part of the Folklife Festival and programs on the culture of the Tibetan diaspora. Got my buddy Yo-Yo Ma. One year we collaborated and we did a program on the Silk Road that became a big thing, that aspects of which traveled around the country. We have affiliate museums, over 200 affiliate museums across the country. Several in Seattle, you know those well, from the Burke and History and Industry, Flight, and the Wing Luke Museum. And we do programs with our affiliates, loaning objects, doing exhibitry, and doing living programs. A few years ago, we sent this artifact from the Smithsonian to Seattle, Apollo 11. And we send stuff. The Smithsonian had the charge after 9/11. It was kind of the hardest curatorial challenge I think we had, collecting the artifacts of 9/11, and many of those we did exhibits, and many of those are on loan to the 9/11 Memorial Museum in New York. We send our things, we put stuff on exhibit at the Smithsonian, like the Obama portraits at the National Portrait Gallery, but then we send those around the country. We sent, in this case, Los Angeles, Brooklyn, and other locales. We've increasingly put our stuff online. Stuff is the technical name for Smithsonian collections. We have over 160 million objects in the Smithsonian. It's a lot of stuff. And so we can only put 1 or 2% of our artifacts on display. We send things around again to our affiliate museums for temporary exhibits around the country, but more and more stuff online, both in 2D and 3D. We still publish books about our scholarship, and some of you might get Smithsonian Magazine every month. It's one of the largest circulation magazines in the country, and the Smithsonian even has a record company called Smithsonian Folkways. We've won many Grammy Awards and produced music that documents American culture as well as those from around the planet. A few years ago, I worked with another buddy, Todd Smith, you might know him as LL Cool J, on this hip hop anthology that documented the rise of that musical tradition. We operate the Smithsonian Channel, a partnership with Paramount. So that is on cable TV. We do other movies. I remember when Ben Stiller and Robin Williams, Amy Adams, and so on were at the Smithsonian hanging out for Night at the Museum, Battle of the Smithsonian. An interesting romp through the place. We do great courses. I've done a few great courses programs with the likes of Colin Powell and Jose Andres and Yo-Yo. We do tourist programs and travel programs with our memberships. And of course, we do a lot of research. So the pandas are coming back to the National Zoo in Washington, hopefully by the end of the year. They were originally part of the cultural exchange between Nixon and China, after Nixon had gone to China. And what we've done at the zoo is not only display pandas, which are cute and cuddly. Actually, their skin is more like a porcupine than a fuzzy doll. But we do research, and it was the Smithsonian that pioneered techniques for artificial insemination of pandas and panda reproduction, so they wouldn't be an endangered species. And we figure out how to get pandas pregnant. When I was undersecretary, it was the most important thing I could do every year is make sure the pandas got pregnant. But we do that in China as well, run with the Chinese in a center in Chengdu for the production of pandas, and those go worldwide. We save at the Smithsonian many species from extinction and understand issues of ecology and extinction of species. We operate a center in Panama, the Tropical Research Center, which hosts about 1,500 scientists every year that does research on tropical biology, coral reefs, and tropical rainforests. And we have a worldwide project measuring the impact of global warming on forests, mainly tropical, but now also temperate forests around the world. And we try to figure out, we do experimental plots trying to figure out what global warming will yield in terms of its impact on forest, plant life, and animal life. And we do all sorts of gatherings, conferences, and so on, participating in many US government, university, and non-governmental activities, looking at what we can do in terms of the face of climate change. We also have these collections, and one might argue why the Smithsonian has a mosquito collection, but we do. And it goes back to a long time, and mosquitoes as a vector of disease. But those collections of mosquitoes come in useful when you're looking at the genetic evolution of viruses that those mosquitoes carry. And that became very important when Smithsonian scientists were looking into Zika and the spread of Zika and understanding the evolution of viruses and viral vectors of disease. Similarly, the Smithsonian has the world's largest collection of bats. And as COVID was developing, the Smithsonian was doing work in Southeast Asia, looking at the development of these vectors of disease that go from wildlife to human life, and documenting actually 6 more varieties of COVID. So we do that research work. The Smithsonian has about 1,000 research scholars and scientists that do this work. And of course, when we're doing the work, we also collect things like the first COVID vaccine and artwork relating to COVID. We did interviews with Fauci, and the Smithsonian even has that model that Fauci used. This is what it looks like behind the scenes at the Smithsonian. It's incredible. These are birds, millions of them that we collected. And those birds are useful in understanding evolution and plumage and ecological adaptation. But we have a unit at the Smithsonian of forensic ornithologists. What do forensic ornithologists do? Well, headed by a group led by Carla Dove, I kid you not, that unit basically gets, whenever there's a bird strike in the United States, the FAA sends the stuff, the remains, to the Smithsonian so we can identify it. And that's how we knew. If you remember the miracle on the Hudson with Sully landing that plane successfully in the Hudson, well, that's how they knew it was Canadian geese, because the remains of that bird strike came to the Smithsonian and were able to identify it. We do all sorts of work on stuff. A few years ago, we were talking before the meeting with John. I wrote a book. He's a jeweler, or jewelry company lawyer, but I wrote a book on the Hope Diamond. So we not only display it, it's visited by about 5 million people a year, but when we close the museum, we do experiments on it, hit it with a laser, gouge out pieces, and try to understand what makes it blue. We also do a lot of work in air and space. At the Air and Space Museum, very popular, and sometimes it will get 9-10 million visitors a year. But we have folks up in the work floors there who are looking at the moon, looking at Mars. We have a guy who works on the Curiosity rover on Mars, and we're trying to understand planetary geology. The Smithsonian also runs, we get over $150 million a year from NASA. The Smithsonian runs telescopes and space missions for NASA. So this is the Chandra Space Telescope that's been working for decades. This is an array on the Big Island in Hawaii run by the Smithsonian. If you remember that picture of the black hole from a few years ago, that was a Smithsonian-led group, the Event Horizon Group. And that's what was able to use the whole world as a telescope to craft that. Whoop. Somehow I lost the share here. This is a telescope we're building in Chile right now. It's called the Giant Magellan Telescope. This telescope will allow us to look back almost to the Big Bang. It's 38 stories tall. It's huge. And I think, again, okay, let's see if that works. That's what that telescope looks like. If you see that arrow, look at that red arrow. That's the size of a human being. That'll give you a sense of the size of that telescope. We also do work in cultural recovery after the earthquake in Haiti. The Smithsonian knows a lot about saving culture and conserving artifacts. So we've worked earthquakes in Nepal, we've worked in Iraq, we work around the United States. We have a partnership with FEMA when there's floods and hurricanes to help people save their cultural goods. We work in Iraq, that's the museum in Mosul that ISIS destroyed, that we are currently rebuilding with the Louvre and our Iraqi colleagues in the World Monuments Fund. We do work in Ukraine. We monitor now 28,000 cultural sites in Ukraine. We get use of US government satellites. They detect infrared, we detect explosions and kinetic events, and we're able to take satellite imagery and look at the Russian destruction of cultural sites. That is a potential war crime, and we do that work with the State Department and Department of Defense. We've shipped in millions of dollars worth of goods to Ukrainians so they could pack up their culture and save it. And we made a deal with Uber to take conservators around Ukraine so they can get to these sites and conserve them. We stood up with the US Army, the revitalized monuments men and women who we train every year at the Smithsonian and down at Fort Liberty, formerly Fort Bragg, with the Army. And that's what the Smithsonian does. We have about 7,000 employees, a budget of close to $2 billion a year, with the US government paying about 60% of it, and other citizens and donors, philanthropists, foundations, and so on, kicking in the other 40%, which makes us and allows us to do good work for the people of the United States and of the planet. So let me take some questions from there. I think we have time for a few questions.
Yeah, that was amazing, Dr. Kurin. Thank you so much. Blown away, and so much impact that the Smithsonian has in throughout the culture and the history of America. It's incredible. The first question we have here is, Dr. Kurin, has there ever been an exhibit considered too controversial to put on to what advocated to see to fruition? Please explain.
Well, so currently I'm writing a book. I've written like 7 books about the Smithsonian. Currently, I'm writing one about controversies. And there's been many. You can look at the Smithsonian as a history of controversy. So, we've gotten in, historically, we've gotten sued because we were doing an exhibit about evolution. We've had complaints about people because we have art that people have a question about. There's been, in the 19th century, there were issues about our documentation of American Indian culture at a time when the U.S. is at war with Native American tribes, and there were members of Congress that didn't want to see it. I have in this book, I'll tell a bit about, sometimes members of Congress will be very heavy-handed about not wanting this sort of stuff. But I think the Smithsonian has persevered. And during my last 50 years of the Smithsonian, 48 years of working for the Smithsonian, there's no exhibit that we haven't done that somebody said you can't do. So we usually will find a way to do it and prevail. And my feeling is, as long as it's done with sound scholarship and science, that's what we're going to do.
Awesome. I have a question directly in understanding the reserves. You said about 2% is displayed, the other 90% is behind the scenes. And I wonder, like, let's say if your budget was even bigger because of the impact you have, would that get to circulate around other museums across the United States to have that? Because when I remember as a kid, it's so impactful to go and see these things. And I'm sure everyone feels very similar. And I'm wondering if more of this material got spread around more, it would lead to a great appreciation. I'm curious.
Yeah. So as I said, there's about 160 million things in the Smithsonian. At any one time, there's about 5 million circulating, because we want to send it out on traveling exhibits. We want to send it out to affiliate museums so people can see it and have access to it, because we're limited by our own real estate. It does take money to do that. Every time the Apollo 11 moved during the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, it costs $1 million to move it. So yes, if there were more money, we can get more stuff out, more stuff around the United States so that people could see it. But that's also, why we increasingly look at 3D digitization, because it's a lot cheaper to send a digital image to millions of people than moving around the real thing. But, again, there's nothing like that real thing. When I look at Apollo, that spacecraft, I say, this looks like a tea kettle. Like, you really talk these three guys into getting into that thing. Hey, we're going to shoot you to the moon and back. You don't appreciate that when you're looking at an image, but when you see the real thing, you do. So we'd love to get more of that, of our stuff around the country.
Love it. Yeah. How did you convince them? They did it though. Are there any international peers to the Smithsonian?
Not really, not at that level. I mean, you have, some governments, they group museums under a Ministry of Culture. We don't have a Ministry of Culture in the United States. It's not like that. But you have things like in Germany, SPK, which, is a confederation of many museums. China, there's pretty tight state control over museums, but there's nothing like the Smithsonian. And the thing that makes the Smithsonian, I got to say what it is because while it's governmental, it's also vested in, the citizenry. So it's, we're both part of the United States government, but we're also a 501c3. We're not an executive branch agency. And so we do have that kind of freedom. So our span is not a coercive one, as you would find in some large countries of museums.
Okay. All right. We have a couple more questions here from Jevin. How does the Smithsonian Magazine remain relevant at a time when newspapers and other print media are struggling?
Yeah, so I get Smithsonian Magazine. I'm a donor to the Smithsonian. I pay for my subscription, and that magazine has gotten smaller and smaller and thinner, just like other magazines in the country have. So, we used to make about $20 million a year profit on that museum. Profit meaning it got plowed back into the institution. Now it doesn't make much money at all. And the same thing with books. So Smithsonian Magazine has gone online. Smithsonian.com gets tens of millions of viewers every month. And, you just like all of you and your own businesses and your own enterprises, you try to figure out, okay, given new technologies, given what audiences expect, how do you make those kind of transformations? Certainly happening in the TV industry. We got into a deal with CBS and Showtime over cable television. Well, now with the multiple platforms, cable television is going undergoing tremendous stress and changes. And so, the same is true for the Smithsonian Channel these days. So it's just figuring out how do we do it today to be relevant tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And for our last question, we're two questions actually. We're going to leave it to our president, President John, and he wants to share with you. So thank you. Awesome presentation. Appreciate it tremendously.
Well, I'm just thrilled with all of the information that you've been able to provide us, Dr. Kurin. This is really remarkable for our club and for our people to hear all about this. I want to thank you so much for this. My one question, though, has to do with the fact that we have two new museums, relatively new museums, that are part of the Smithsonian, the African American Museum and also the Native American Museum. Any other museums in the works right now for us?
Yeah, so there was legislation signed under the Trump administration for the Latino Museum and the Women's History Museum. So, and given our federal government, they say to the Smithsonian, hey guys, you'll run it, you'll put together a board, it'll be under the Board of Regents. The federal government will give us half the money, and we have to go out and raise the other half. So, new museums these days, new national museums cost about $600 million. So those are big ticket items to raise. And there's issues of where we build those museums because everybody wants to be on the National Mall of the United States. It's so symbolically, important, and it says something. And of course, we're running out of space. So, raising money, finding a space, getting agreement, and then figuring out how to populate those museums with exhibits, collections, artifacts, and researchers then becomes our task. So we're engaged in that right now.
That's wonderful. This is a real treasure for us in the United States to have this institution with so many museums that are part of it. And what's so exciting is that, you go to a museum now. I'm on the board of the museum Mohai, our history museum in Seattle. We charge money for people to visit the museum. The Smithsonian does not charge. You can go to all of these museums and enjoy it, and hopefully people will be able to donate and give dollars to the museum to help that 40% of your budget continue. I get the magazine and I get a calendar every year from you guys, and it is just it keeps me very happy. And thank you so much for your presentation. On behalf of our Rotary Service Foundation, we are going to provide a number of meals for Harvest Against Hunger. In thanking you, Dr. Kurin, for your time right now in spending with us here at Seattle Rotary number 4, our 4th oldest in the world. And
Thank you, John.
I apologize for the interruptions here, but I guess we all learn about things like that in this age of the internet. I also, at this particular point, want to thank REB Enterprises and Carl Benke and Bloodworks Northwest for sponsorship of this of our meeting. And I also wanted to just finish what I wasn't able to do about our future vision and talk a little bit about the 3rd annual hunger strike, which is a multi-Rotary club challenge to bowl. Yes, bowl in the sense of actually using a bowling ball, right, while raising funds to support the good work of Harvest Against Hunger. In the past, our club has organized 2 to 3 small hunger strike bowling teams, and I hope we're going to be able to do that this year. And I want to challenge everybody to be able to join one of those teams. Contact Jan Levy or Jen Gladish, and they'll be happy to help you put together a team to go forward and raise money for this wonderful cause. Given all of that, I want to bring Jaime back to talk about club announcements, and then we will close our meeting. Are you there, Jaime?
Yeah. Sorry about that. September 26th, Wellspring Lunch Hour Service Session. That'll be tomorrow. Please come check it out. You can volunteer with your fellow club members at your next lunch break. It goes from 12:15 to 1:30. You could sign up an event listing. It's in our Mayberry, and we just learned about the our Mayberry earlier today, which is awesome. You need to fill it out for a volunteer form, and there'll be additional information about the event. Then we have the following week on October 2nd. We have a lunch meeting with Eric Nordstrom at the WAC. That should be awesome, spectacular. Big fan of Nordstrom. I think a lot of people are, and we'll be held at the WAC. So I'm assuming a lot of Rotarians are also members there too. So they'll be able to chaperone us a little bit if we get lost. I'm sure we're not. The sign's always there. It's going to be a great event. I hope to see everyone there. Following up, it's October 9th. We have our evening event. It's a happy hour at the Frolic at Motif. It's right in downtown. This will at the Frolic Bar. It's a no-cost happy social hour, so it's free. It goes from 6 p.m. to 7:30. Once again, please RSVP on our Mayberry, and it's a nice evening. It should be nice, wonderful. I said the word nice a couple more times. Love it. And then October 16th, we have Governor Isley at the Motif Hotel. So we'll be back there again the following week. That's the governor. Gets no better than that. So we should hopefully get some good questions from them. But in this political climate that we're going through, this is a good event to be a part of. So lucky us for Seattle for Rotarians. And the following week, we will be on a Zoom only meeting with Karen Waters, learning about Strategies 360. And that's everything. And it's great to see everyone once again. I hope everyone's having a great week.
And did we lose John again? We may have.
Maybe we did.
So we might just call this meeting to conclusion. Thank you all. Woo, that was something, but we got through it. Thank you so much, Dr. Kurin. Thank you, Jaime. Thank you for everyone. Y'all have a wonderful week and hope to see you soon.